Welcome back. This is Julie Baranek, host of the Seven Figure Builder Show, and I'm here with my friend David Newman. Hey, David.
Hey, Julie, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Of course, of course. And we are going to talk all things consulting, and we've got an awesome show today. But first and foremost, where in the world are you?
I am outside Philadelphia in a town called Bryn Mawr, Pennsylvania,
You are in my old stomping grounds. I grew up in that area, so I know it well.
the main line, as we call it.
For sure. And for those that haven't had the pleasure to meet you, can you tell us a bit about your business?
Sure. So I run a company called Do It Marketing, and we sort of have two branches to our business. Branch number one is marketing and sales training for solo consultants, B2B coaches, corporate trainers, speakers, folks like that. And then the second branch of our business is aimed still in the professional services area, but larger boutique consulting firms. And by boutique, I mean between 1 million and 10 million in revenue, usually 1 to 4 equity partners and 5 to 50 headcount. That's kind of the sweet spot. And we help them become more profitable and more scalable and more saleable if they're looking at building an asset that they can exit and monetize in the next 3 to 5 years.
Awesome. And I love all things with this. But how did you get to this point in your career? Tell us a bit about your story of getting here.
Sure. So, you and I were chatting a little bit right before we turned on the microphones. I come out of a 10-year corporate consulting career where I was doing consulting and some speaking and some training on behalf of some large consulting firms. Towers Perrin, the office here in Philadelphia. I did a stint with Microsoft. I did a stint with PeopleSoft before they were acquired by Oracle. So, kind of IT consulting and HR management consulting. Went out on my own January of 2002, figuring I know how to consult, I know how to coach and speak and train. How hard can it be? And Julie, I found out how hard it can be because as an entrepreneur, of course, doing the employee to entrepreneur leap, it's not about doing the work. You can be awesome at doing the work, doesn't matter. You got to now sell the work. And I couldn't sell my way out of a paper bag. So it was just a disaster. Lead generation, prospecting. This was all a gigantic mystery. And I think this is a lesson in the old entrepreneurial mantra that, entrepreneurs are really great at solving their own problem, or that we somehow always end up teaching what we most need to learn ourselves. So I went out into the marketplace, total generalist. I had 30 different workshops on 30 different topics, jack of all trades, master of none, no niche, no target market, no clue. And I realized that was a really, really hard way to make a living. I was doing like leadership and strategy and communication skills and management and team building and blah. So I sat back after a lot of struggle and I said, okay, what of this morass of things do I really enjoy? And believe it or not, even though I had no idea what the heck I was doing, I said, I really enjoy the marketing stuff. It's creative, but it's revenue generating. And then the whole sales piece, which is a mystery to me, I need to help other people figure out what I'm slowly figuring out, but I need to help them on a much faster track. And so that took about 5 years. So it started out in 2002. Around 2007, I left the generalist business behind, put my stake in the ground, marketing, sales. I figured it out. I, became a raving student. I read every book I could get my hands on. I took classes. I was online. I was studying all of the masters. And I literally, I must have read 50 books and I must have just, put enough together where it started working. And then my friends and my peers who were also trying to get into Fortune 500 companies to do coaching and training and consulting, they started to see a little bit of this success that I was having. And they said to me, well, David, how do you do this? And how do you do that? And can I pick your brain? And can we go for coffee? And I was like, yeah, sure. Let's go for coffee, breakfast, lunch, whatever. No idea that this would end up being a business. A friend of mine who's a career consultant says to me, David, you should do this for a living. And I said, what? Eat bacon and eggs with you? No, not eat bacon and eggs. You should help people with marketing and sales and so get the Fortune 500 clients that you're getting. And I laughed at him. I said, that is a terrible idea. That's a ridiculous idea. I'm never going to do that. Thanks a lot. I'm going to go back to my corporate training contracts and consulting contracts. I'm not going to deal with solopreneurs. First of all, solopreneurs are broke. Solopreneur, no way. Absolutely not. So he finally prevails upon me. He says, what if I get 3 or 4 people together? Would you be willing to do just a really informal, kind of in your living room data dump of what you're doing, how you're doing it, and how we can learn to do something similar? I said, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to have 4 meetings, 4 Tuesdays. We are going to talk about all of this stuff, but I'm going to have to charge you. I said, I'm going to have to charge you. He says, how much? I said, $50. He says, $50 a week? I said, no, $50 for the whole thing. Just like, bagel and coffee money. So he gathered 4 people, $50 each. So yes, that was $200. And I was having so much fun. I was, doing $5,000, $10,000, $20,000 work for, 1-day programs, 2-day programs, seminars, workshops, facilitation for Fortune 500 companies. I was having more fun in my living room with the $200 crew. And this was around 2008. That was the moment that I realized, wait a minute, when I'm in front of a corporate group, it's okay. It pays nice. I'm in the wrong room. I'm in the wrong room doing the wrong thing in front of the wrong people for the wrong reason. These are my people. And that's the moment that I dialed back the corporate work and I dialed up the work with the trusted advisors and the consultants and the coaches.
I love it. And we are definitely kindred spirits. Professional students. And I just want to touch on that for a minute, but I too am like a human sponge. Like I just soak up information. But what did you find was the best way? I know you said you got books and you were just reading all of those, but what is your takeaway from that looking back?
I think there was a whole world that opened up that, it wasn't just getting lucky because, sometimes as kind of a baby entrepreneur, you can be a very sophisticated executive. You retire after a 20, 25-year career. Hey, I want to do what Julie's doing. I want to have a podcast. I want to do training. I want to have coaching programs. And they're like, I have no idea what even the baby steps of that look like. So immersing myself in that world, studying what worked, studying what didn't, adapting the best of what I saw to be effective for my own personality. And I think that's one of the key things. And I'm sure you teach your clients and audiences the same thing, is that there's no cookie cutter. There is, people say, oh, Julie, can I have a sales script? It's like, David, can I have a sales script? It's like, no, you can't have a sales script. You can have a sales framework, and I think frameworks are incredibly important. Scripts are almost useless because someone was up at 2 o'clock in the morning. They wrote a script based on what works for them, their target market, their ideal buyer, the people that they're talking to, and it uses their sense of humor. It uses their personality. You try and put that on, it's like trying to put on clothes that are 3 sizes too big or 3 sizes too small. It's going to be itchy, uncomfortable, and you're going to get grumpy. You're just going to get grumpy. So how do you tailor like you tailor a set of clothes? How do you tailor a sales process and a sales framework that for you personally is easy, effortless, and enjoyable? I spent a lot of years early on figuring out what that is for me and what are the frameworks that do not change, and then what are the levers and the variables that can and should change so that you don't sound like a sales robot. And then I started teaching others. And then people who used to hate to sell, like really hate it, like allergic, and they were afraid of selling. They were afraid of initial conversations. They thought that selling equals cold calling. So it's so funny because some people that don't like marketing, you say, what don't you like about marketing? Well, I really hate cold calling. It's like, well, marketing doesn't equal cold calling. What do you hate about selling? Oh, gosh, I really hate cold calling. Wait a minute. Selling doesn't mean cold calling. So what will take a prospect from cold to warm? 3 things. Number 1, research. Find out as much as you can. LinkedIn, Google, their website, press releases, YouTube, podcasts, all of that. Number 2, so research is number 1. Relevance. Are you showing up on their radar as a relevant resource? that has a direct connection to something that they're working on, trying to solve, or trying to aspire to. And then number three is relationship. Are you connecting to sell? Bad. Or are you connecting to genuinely open a relationship that may or may not end up in a sale, but to open a relationship and to be of value and to be of service? So, in everything that we teach around our sales training methodology, your come from, not the script, not the template, not what's on your website, not what's on your LinkedIn, your come from is the most important thing. Are you there to pitch? Are you there to sell? Or are you there to help? And are you there to serve? Because people can smell that from a mile away, and they will open the door and welcome you in if they genuinely sense that you're there to help and serve. And the shields will go up, lights and sirens go off if you're one of the connect and pitch crowd.
100%. And I think that's so important for the listeners, like really to grasp the concept. And so many of us have struggled in sales, and I'll speak for myself. Like I was petrified. I hated doing that when I first got into my business. I'm like, okay, I can't be in business if I can't sell. So like
Amen.
you, I'm like, I gotta just grab the bull by the horns and get every resource I can possibly get and just absorb it and pull out what works for me and my personality
Yeah.
and, build those skills. And the more you practice and the more you put it into play, the easier it becomes. Like I was right before this on a call with a client and walking through a similar thing. I'm like, okay, here's your whole story. And I walk through their whole sales pitch for them. I'm like, this is, how I would say it. You need to do it for yourself. But they just kind of looked at me and they're like, you've done this before, haven't you? And I thought back to, I'm like, yeah, I've done it a time or two. But I was petrified of it too. Like I hated it. So the more you
Yeah.
can build that as a skill, like any other skill, the more it's going to come natural.
Totally. And it's so funny, Julie. And I'm sure we have a very similar experience with this. You'll, just like you said, you'll role play a sales conversation with a prospect. And or I'm sorry, with a client. And you'll have so many of those clients who have said to me, and I'm sure who have said to you, well, Julie, I'll just bring you on the sales call. You do it. You do it better than I do. And here's my response to that. The only reason I do it better than you do is right now I believe in your value more than you do. Right? So I do it with certainty and clarity and specificity. And they're like, how do you do that? It's like, well, because I know that you're awesome. I know your product. I know your service. I know your program that you're trying to sell to these economic buyers. And I know the profound effect it can have on helping them. And the best thing is, I'm not you. So I can take that certainty and clarity and succinctness, and I can just do it. Sadly, I can do it with you in a coaching mode. I can't really do it for you because I'm not your salesperson. And it would be kind of weird if I started selling on behalf of my clients, and I also can't sell on behalf of like 80 clients. So that would
Right.
be very, very stressful job for me. But when they see someone else model how it would look selling their services, they're like, damn, that's good. I say, yeah, it is good. So do it just like that. But like you said, adapt it to your personality, your sense of humor, your cadence, your pace. So, not everyone has to be like big, loud, goofy, and bald. I'm big, loud, goofy, and bald. That works for me because I am big, loud, goofy, and bald. I've had clients who are introverts, very quiet, not a big sense of humor, but they connect because the come from is in the
Yeah.
right place. And their authenticity sounds like and looks like different. It sounds and looks different than my authenticity because I'm letting my personality kind of lead the conversation. And there's no one sales personality. It's not like, oh, you have to be a good talker, you have to have the gift of gab, you have to, be talking sports and weather and all this other nonsense. All you have to do is uncover the genuine personality of caring and connection and relevance and relationship. And I would even say if you have friends and you know how to make new friends, that is a sales skill, right? So you asked earlier about some of my influences. So 20 years ago, I read a whole bunch of books by Jeffrey Gitomer, the quote unquote king of sales. And one of the lines that really stuck with me, one of Jeffrey's lines, is you don't need more prospects. You need more friends. And then, genuine friendship, relationship, that will lead to a commercial relationship some of the time with some of those prospects. But I just love that reframe that, you don't need more prospects. Just go out and make more friends who are in a position to benefit from what you do.
Yeah. And that goes back to the relationship that you were talking about. And
Yeah.
I'm a huge proponent. Everything I do is relationship based building, right? Relationship based lead
Yeah.
generation. But it goes back to your energy of,
Yeah.
as you were mentioning, like if you're going into it to pitch, then it's more prospect. If you're going into just
Yes.
help people connect and, build that relationship, it's a friend, right?
Yeah.
And people really thrive off of that. I think that's so important that
Yeah.
we internalize that and make that our intention. So what are the other biggest gaps that you see that business, consultants, entrepreneurs that they need?
Yeah. Well, I think in the professional services world where we are selling our intellectual property, we're selling our expertise, to some extent, we're selling ourselves. There's this notion that if we somehow get rejected, they're rejecting us personally. It's not like when you're selling Girl Scout cookies and no thanks, I have plenty of Thin Mints. I don't want Thin Mints. I mean, you might be a little bit deflated, but it's not like, oh, you're terrible. You are the worst. Like they don't want Thin Mints. It's like, yeah, they don't want Thin Mints, but Thin Mints is outside of yourself. The Samoas and the lemon cookies, however, those are you want to buy those. You totally want to buy those. I'm the dad of a former Girl Scout. She's now 31, but I
Nice.
remember selling the Girl Scout cookies. When we're selling ourselves, there is a lot of hesitation and trepidation and fear, over analyzing, over paralyzing, and we would do almost anything other than money making activity. If we reframe this money making activity, AKA making friends, if we reframe this with four simple words, the four simple words are offer value and invite engagement. That's your job. It's not marketing, it's not selling, it's offer value, invite engagement. So let's break down those two parts. Offer value is in terms of being incredibly helpful to your target market, whether they buy or not. In my Do It Marketing book, I talk about the Happy Meal marketing, right? So our clients that pay us big, beautiful amounts of money, they get a beautiful 7-course meal. They're not at McDonald's. Beautiful 7-course meal, white tablecloth, glasses, the 3 kinds of forks, 2 kinds of knives, that little knife that you're not sure, is this for the fish? Is this for the butter? What is this? By the way, it's not for the butter. It is for the fish. Those people get the full meal. Even prospects who engage in your marketing, who are exposed to your marketing, or who are exposed to your sales process but do not buy, even they should get a happy meal. So what that means is nobody leaves your house hungry. They either become a client and get the beautiful 7-course spread, or they get a happy meal that's going to be helpful, useful, actionable, and will help them in a small way. Obviously, if they can take it and do a little bit of something with it themselves, that's great. But you have been of help. You have been of service. You have been of benefit to them. They are better off after having experienced your marketing than if they had not experienced your marketing at all. So what does that mean? That means that your emails should be helpful, useful, valuable, actionable. Your videos, your webinars. I've done webinars for the last 10 years, literally since 2013. Nothing makes me more crazy than a value-free webinar.
Yeah.
A webinar that's a complete, I mean, you've been on these, right? And it's like, dude, it's been 30 minutes. I don't want to see your vacation house. I don't want to see your beautiful husband or wife. I don't want to see your 17 kids. I don't want to see, hey, I'm on Richard Branson's island. Great, wonderful. Teach me something, for God's sakes. I've been on here for 25 minutes. I haven't learned a gosh darn thing. My rule on webinars is 2 minutes maximum of intro, and then you hit the first piece of value. The first writer downer, the first thing that people will go, gosh, that's really useful. Let me write that down. And then you make an offer at the end of that webinar. So let's say it's 40 minutes of teaching and training. And of course, you seed that with success stories and testimonials and a few of your frameworks and a few of your indisputable points of proof. And then whatever the offer is, 10 minutes, and then I open it up for Q&A. The Q&A can be about the content or the offer, but I don't want to spend 20 minutes listening to how you struggled and how you drove a truck and then, your kid got, paralyzed by being run over by a hot dog cart and, no. Value, 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 value. Every webinar, every post, every email, every video, everything that you put out in front of your prospects should be helpful, generous, relevant, and the marketing should be so good that they keep the marketing. The marketing is too good to throw away. They save your emails even if they don't buy. They bookmark that webinar recording and they go back to it and they actually watch it another 2 or 3 times. They're there taking screenshots, or you've given them a PDF of your slide deck that has the frameworks or the how-to or so forth. So, I think people that ask the question, well, David, how much is too much? If I give it all away, they won't become clients. If that's what you're thinking as you're listening to me and Julie right now, I'm going to ask you the following challenging question. When is the last time that you saw a movie trailer and you said, man, that movie trailer is so good, I am definitely not seeing that film. Definitely not going to that. It's just too darn good. Of course, when you give your best material away, right, they're saying, oh my gosh, if I'm getting this as a prospect, imagine the value and the results acceleration I would get when I become a client. So for the folks that are a little bit gun shy, remove marketing, remove sales from your vocabulary, replace it with 2 new phrases: offer value, invite engagement. Invite engagement doesn't mean buy my stuff, by the way. Invite engagement can be micro commitments along the way. So like, share, comment, hey, drop an emoji if you agree. Subscribe to the newsletter, click here to opt in, sign up for my next webinar, book a call. That's a more warm, more interested lead. Yes, I want to book a call, right? So that's kind of level 2 commitment. Julie, sign me up. I love your program. Here's my credit card. That's level 3. But everyone thinks, so let's just jump right to level 3. Just give me your credit card, buy my stuff, buy my stuff, buy my stuff. That's not value. That's pitching. And so offer value, invite engagement is level 1 engagement and level 2 engagement on the way to level 3.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And all of those things that you described build a trusted relationship. Like it goes back to
Yes.
that, where if you're helping me on a daily basis for free or for paid, right? It could be lower ticket items or whatever you're offering, but I then want to come back for more. And I know I've done it, like we don't even think about it, but when we find something useful, we bookmark it and we save it and we want to come back later. And then we do come back later more times than not. And then generally we end up buying from those people down the road. So
Right.
you're absolutely right. That's the way it works, is just continuing to give and continuing to serve your people.
Right.
So what do you see ahead for you this year? I know you've done awesome things so far. You've got awesome things happening, but tell us a little sneak peek of what's coming.
So we are looking at a couple of fun things. There may be a new kind of cohort-based mastermind for professional services business owners. We have our primary mentoring program for the solo folks I mentioned is called Do It MBA. We have a growth partner program for the boutique consulting firms, and now adding this kind of mastermind component that's more building the community. It's not about coaching. It's not about direct access to me and, work with David, et cetera, et cetera. It's kind of like David's Smart Friends. David's Smart Friends around the world of consulting and coaching and professional training and speaking. A lot of times people say, well, David, when's your next book coming out? I have bad news. So I've written 3: Do It Marketing, Do It Speaking, and Do It Selling came out in 2023. Those are the only 3 things I know about. So no new book for the time being. You can ask me any question about marketing, any question about speaking, and speaking specifically as a lead generator and as a one-to-many sales platform. That's the kind of speaking I'm talking about. And that could be both online and offline, doesn't have to be in person. And then, of course, sales and selling, our favorite topic, you and me, Julie. But yeah, so there's no new book because I don't know what I would put in a new book. Kind of all my brains have been downloaded into the three current books.
Awesome. And I want to hit on something you mentioned earlier, but we don't talk often enough about selling a business, right? And I know
Oh
that's
yeah,
something
for
that
sure.
you really help people with, but
Yeah.
what guidance would you give people wherever they are in their business to be thinking about that in the future?
I am super glad that you asked. So there is a very important preparation step. And so people that say, well, I think I'd like to sell this business in like the next 6 to 12 months, you're already too late. You want to have at least 3 years of planning and preparation. I will tell you what you're doing in those 3 years. Number one, you are making sure that your financials are super tight, super clean, super in order, very, very granular financials. You are making sure that you are on a growth track, that you're not stagnating or declining, but that revenue is growing. You're also making sure the third piece related to the revenue growing is that you've installed a monthly recurring revenue model or a subscription model, if you will. So productizing your service is something that you want to work on so that it can be packaged, it can be trained, it can be transferred, it can be delegated to other people. You also want to remove yourself from the day-to-day operations. And this is, if you're running I don't know, steel mill, little small steel mill somewhere, you don't need to be pushing the buttons. In our world of professional services, people go, "Oh, I'm the only one, or I'm the best one," or you know what? You're not, and you need to make the system the celebrity. Do not make you the celebrity because that business is not saleable. Make your system the celebrity. Make sure that it's trainable and transferable to other people, and then trust the people that you hire and get the heck out of their way so that you are removing yourself from the day to day of the business. So, all of those things take about 3 years to get in place and to really dial in and be comfortable. Then I would say you are ready to begin the process of looking at, do I want to have a strategic buyer? Do I want to, is it a merger and acquisition? Is it an investor, private equity, angel investor? Um, but professional services can be really, really tricky because if you do it wrong, then the business, even if you have a $4 or $5 million business, I have a friend who had a $4 or $5 million business. It was a research company. He was doing all the sales and all the research.
Mm.
So he goes to, a colleague and says, "Hey, I want to sell the business. I got, 4 or 5 million. About 3 million is profit." He's like, "Oh, yeah, I've got a $10 million exit. What do you think it's worth?" The M&A professional said, "I got bad news. You do have a $4.5 million business. There is $3 million of profit, but you're doing all the selling. You're doing all the research. This company is worthless." He's like, "What? Yes, this company is where you can't sell it.
Yeah.
Can't sell it unless you do those things that I mentioned, those kind of bullets that I just talked about." On the other hand, there's a $10 million consulting company that a couple of years ago sold for $160 million
Wow.
because they had software. It was a technology play. Everything was subscription based, monthly recurring revenue. It was a data and research company that had data scientists and researchers, not the CEO, doing the work. They had professional salespeople doing the selling, not the CEO doing the selling. And they were on this amazing growth track because they had opened up a very specific niche in the B2B world that they totally dominated. So it's like, well, wait a second. You can have someone can buy your company for $160 million and you're only making $10 million a year. Yes. Why? Because of what the acquirer can do with it. So you're not only selling the current state of the business, you're selling that growth potential. You're selling where they can take it to a 10x level, a 20x level. They can blow out and dominate that entire industry specialization using the same infrastructure that you have. There's delivery people, there's sales people, and the CEO can literally be on a beach and the company goes on just like a machine, that you've built the machine and you can now sell the machine.
Yeah, and it's so important that you mentioned that people start thinking about this now, wherever they are, or yesterday, right? If
Think
you
about it yesterday. Start
you gotta
yesterday.
For sure, if you want to actually sell your business, like you've got to have this in play, all those steps that you mentioned, which are really important, and also what your actual offer is, right? Because if your offer is only you, and I see this a lot with my clients, that's why I'm always intrigued by it, and it's something I help them with. But you've got, if you're the only face of the business, you've got nothing to sell,
Yeah,
right? Like you've got to have those systems in play that are going to support the business and be transferable to somebody else. Otherwise,
that's right.
like you said, you're kind of screwed.
Yeah.
So how can people find you if they're hearing this and they're like, okay, I seriously need some help with this?
Yeah, so there is a couple of different free resources. Our main website is doitmarketing.com. All the sales and selling resources from the Do It Selling book are at doitselling.com. And we have a free 37-page Do It Marketing Manifesto that has some of these points kind of summarized and bulleted. It's about 1/3 marketing, 1/3 sales, and 1/3 revenue growth. And that's a free PDF download at doitmarketing.com/manifesto.
Awesome. I love it. And you've accomplished a ton from your books to your career, all of it. But how do you define success? What does that look like for you?
I think success is, and this is going to sound incredibly corny, but I've tried on a lot of other definitions, and they just don't work for me. Uh, for me, success is doing what you love with those you love and for those you love. So the way that that has impacted me, just very briefly, when I was a solopreneur, I had the same, I came up with this. I was like, do work you love. Okay, check that box. With those you love. Well, gosh, right now I'm alone. And so today, fast forward, we have 7 people on our team, and I do love each of them and all of them. So now we check 2 boxes. Do work you love, yes. With those you love, yeah. For those you love. And remember, I was doing the corporate work. I didn't love the corporate people. I didn't love the corporate buyers. I didn't love the corporate audiences. When I had that breakfast with my friend and he says, you should do this for a living, he saw something that I couldn't see. So for those you love, I love entrepreneurs. If you stranded me on a desert island for the next 50 years and you said, David, the only people on that desert island are going to be entrepreneurs and business owners, I'd be like, oh my gosh, this is the greatest thing since sliced bread. Let's get the coconuts. Let's get the pineapples. I'm on the island with the entrepreneurs. They said, you're only going to be on an island with corporate executives. Like, oh my God, no, 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 no. No island with corporate executives. Nothing wrong with the corporate executives, but not my people, right? Not my people. So when I made that discovery, all these choices became easy. And, so the guiding principle for me has been do work you love with those you love and for those you love.
I love that. I love that. And if you had the attention of the whole world for 5 minutes, what would you tell them?
I would do a micro TED talk that is titled Action Eliminates Fear. Action eliminates fear. So obviously with my whole Do It brand, I'm the action guy, right? Fire, fire, aim, maybe. A lot of people like ready, fire, aim. I'm like fire twice, aim once, maybe think about it later. Um, the reason for that is because action truly does eliminate fear. This is in your personal life. This is in your professional life. This is with your team, with your customers, with your partners, with everybody. When you're hesitating, when you're stalled, when you're stuck at a crossroads, do I go left or do I go right? It's better to make any decision, even if it's wrong. It's better to make any decision and go than to make no decision and stay in the crossroads. And I will tell you why. I know there's all kinds of left brain analytical people right now that are getting itchy and turning off the podcast and going, Julie, why do you have crazy people on your show? I'll tell you why. When you make a decision, when you go left at that fork in the road, even if you're not sure if it's right or wrong, it gives you data. It gives you experience. It gives you firsthand feedback that will help you make better decisions going forward. You will never make a great decision sitting alone in your office staring at the wall. You need to get into action because the action will give you the data. The data will inform the next decision, and the next decision will be even better, even sharper, and iterate you towards the right answer. Think of it like an airplane. This is the whole TED Talk right here. Think of it like an airplane that's on autopilot. Autopilot, you don't really spend any more than a couple of seconds exactly on course, right? Every couple of seconds, you're going 1 degree to the left, 1 degree to the right, but there's this constant series of micro adjustments based on the radar data. Where's the plane going? There's wind shear, there's headwinds, there's tailwinds, there's all kinds of crazy stuff up there. At 35,000 feet, there is no possible way for that airplane to go from point A to point B in a straight line, but the data keeps you on track and gives you the guardrails to make sure that you get to your ultimate destination. End of TED Talk. Thanks for coming. Action eliminates fear.
Drop the mic. Thank you, David. This is awesome. And we got a bonus TED Talk with it. Awesome. And definitely check out your links. We'll have them below so people can come find you and come work with you and hear all your amazing stuff and get your books. So absolutely. But thank you for being on today.
Julie, so much fun. I really appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you. And if you found value in this episode, please do share it. That's how people find us. And you can find me at sevenfigurebuilder.com, and I'll see you on the next episode.